much. Okay, guys, I have no idea if this is recording. Good grief. All right. So I just wanted to start Zoom meeting regarding Chapter 1 so we can get started in the course for BI 169 IS1 Fall 2020. All right, so I'm going to just go over some thoughts I had, and then please jump into discussion. I posted it today. It'll officially start running on Monday, so really start thinking about food prepping, and let's really start thinking about some healthier ways we can eat or decide what we're putting in our bodies, more or less. All right. So I'm going to discuss some key terms in the module. I want to get into some caloric intake and some of these other things that are just real basic to nutrition. All right, we'll start identifying the leading causes of death in the U.S. and lifestyle factors that contribute to the risk of these diseases. All right, so please don't think that what the American population is eating is not contributing to their health. All right, and please realize that since the 70s, 80s, 90s, and whatever, there's more and more preserved food or preservatives in the food. And also, in case you guys don't know, the soil is much more depleted. So the vegetables and fruits that our grandparents or great-great-grandparents grew was much more nutritious than it is now. And back when they didn't have genetically modified foods. And please realize things weren't as processed. People didn't have as many choices as far as prepackaged foods with all the phosphates and sugar and other things in it. And, you know, kind of start thinking about all the medications that people are on, the alcohol consumption or the antidepressants or the smoking or whatever, some of these other unhealthy things that are contributing to people's health other than nutrition, right? All right. So we're going to talk about some nutrients. You know, what are some nutrients in food? And, you know, you can think about sugar or some of these, like even alcohol. It has caloric value, but it's not really a nutrient. It's an empty calorie, right? Let's start. Lights went out. All right. And then nutrition, diet, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of these chronic diseases, but start thinking about this. So if we look up here, heart disease, 23% of leading cause of death in the US is heart disease. And please realize that can be from under-exercise, emphysema, it can be from sclerosis of the arteries, fatty blockages in the tissue. It can be caused by vegetative things on the heart valves. There's all kinds of things, and cancer. Right? So please realize, cancer. You know, we're going to talk about it towards the end of the course, but this is some kind of change in tissue or metaplasia or type of change in cells. So we want cells to change if they need to, but if they don't need to change and they're changing on their own, they're defying a lot of the biological laws of cells, like contact inhibition and things. And if these things are changing and they're allowed to grow, your immune system is diminished, and these cancerous cells are allowed to grow, and your natural killer cells and your T cells are not taking them out of your body, then they have a chance to procreate, divide, and cancer cells will divide unchecked. It's not a good thing. All right. And when, you know, we're talking about, here are some of the other causes. There's some respiratory things, strokes, those can be directly linked to some of the foods we eat. And we'll talk a little bit about this, all right? And hopefully we'll get into this in some of the discussions, right? So risk factors are family history. So genetically, we know that some populations are more genetically predisposed to some diseases. We can even say family history, and some of that can be like culturally, what are they eating, or what are some of the things that they eat, or or what kind of food supply do they have, or what decisions are they making about their food or what you're consuming. And that can be generational from grandparents, mothers, um, aunts, or whatever. Age is a huge factor. So we always want to think of the very, very young or the very, very elderly as having an age factor as far as what they're eating. And, by the end of the course, I'm hoping that you will start watching what people are eating in your own family. And then if you go shopping, just think about some of these younger children. I'm not going to be judgmental per se, but when I see mothers or fathers with these young children under the age of 4, and their cart is full of Cheetos and just things that I wouldn't feed a laboratory rat. I think you're feeding these chemicals and processed food to these children, and you're setting up the microbiome and their digestive tract. It's just probably not the best idea. Environmental conditions can be, what are you exposed to? Are you living near an area that has a lot of pesticides or runoff? Or are you in an area where there's a lot of pollution? Are you inner city where you're breathing all that smog? There's not a lot of trees to curl up the air. And please realize, we're talking about nutrition and what we eat. We also have to start thinking about there's all these things that are contributing to our health. It can be the cosmetics we're putting in our body, the things we're breathing in. If you work in an environment where you're handling toxic chemicals or toxic substances, that contributes. Lifestyle, are you non-active? Is your diet poor? Is alcohol a mainstay in your diet continuously? Smoking, whether it's cigarettes or other substances, those are all going to contribute to your overall health, right? And nutrition can be, and diet can be anything you put in your body, all right? So it doesn't have to be don't limit to just food. It can be chemicals, vitamins. Are you taking over-the-counter vitamins, fractionalized vitamins, or are you getting some kind of whole food supplement that comes from whole food that your body can actually recognize and absorb, right? So we'll talk about some just basic nutrition basics. And once again, I told you guys before in the other video, this is not nutrition for science majors. It's really for non-science majors. So this is more of a gen ed, and let's get your head wrapped around basic nutrition, and let's have a discussion on how we can eat things that are healthier and just make better choices on what we're consuming. Any small change can be dramatic, and I wouldn't expect you guys to change your diet overnight, but hopefully in the next 3 months, you'll make small changes, and you'll be surprised within 2 or 3 weeks, you'll start feeling differently if you make some healthier choices, and perhaps you want to keep that change going on in your life. So you want that feeling of well-being, right? So we just find all the key terms in the module, and these are all in your book. List the 6 classes of nutrients and identify a major role of each class of nutrient in the body. So it could be carbohydrates, lipids, fats, minerals, vitamins. So these are general things. So what are their key key role in your body? How is your body going to use them, or why does your body need these components? All right, and calculate the caloric value of a serving of food based on its macronutrients, all right, and alcohol. So a lot of these are going to have 4 calories per gram. Lipids have 9, alcohol is slightly different. So if on a quiz or a test, I gave you some kind of a meal and you had the gram weight of a protein, a lipid, fat, or alcohol, you'd be able to calculate how many calories were in that. And I think you guys are going to be surprised at the amount of calories you consume in a day. So as a rough figure, we could say bare minimum basic is going to be like 800 to 2,000 just to maintain homeostasis in your body. But somebody who's very, very active or larger, has a higher metabolic rate, it could be, as high as 3,000 um, calories per day. But it really depends on the person's contingent upon their activity, their metabolic rate, and even genetic factors, ectomorphs or endomorphs, or your body size can determine some of that also. All right, so provide examples of essential nutrients, non-nutrients, phytochemicals. We're going to find about, these are antioxidants, and they get rid of free radicals, and dietary supplements. So I mentioned before, if you're taking dietary supplements, are you getting, I'm not going to put down any store, Walmart, Target, Tops, Wegmans, or where you are taking this locally or wherever. You can buy stuff over the counter, but please realize a lot of these vitamins, even though they say they're natural, these are chemicals that are broken down and recombined in a laboratory or a pharmaceutical company, and they're all fractionalized, broken apart, and put together. And a lot of times, your body doesn't recognize these. And even if it's missing a very small component, in order to run that enzymatic reaction or to use that vitamin, if it's missing something to run that reaction, it'll literally take it from another part of your body. All right, so there are cases where taking these vitamins can actually be detrimental. It can actually rob your body of some components that you think is in the vitamin. So, I'm going to say, offer on the record that whole food supplementation is taken from whole food. When you consume that, your body completely recognizes that, and it's biologically available to you. All right, we'll talk a little bit about phytochemicals and how some of these foods, we'll see a list here, some of these foods and how they can get rid of free radicals or reduce or oxidation of things in your body. And, if you're not familiar with oxidation, if you have ever seen rust on a car or a piece of metal, all right, that's oxidation. So it's actually breaking it down and destroying it. All right, it really adds to the aging process. All right, explain the importance of supplying the body with these antioxidants. And I'll talk briefly about it. It's in your book. So here are your classes: carbohydrates, fats or lipids, proteins, vitamins, minerals, water, and organic nutrients. All right, so carbohydrates, just generally, we'll go over it again. Basically, these are designed for energy. All right, so your body's going to burn these carbohydrates for energy, and you need them for the Krebs cycle to produce adenosine triphosphate, ATP, to run the Krebs cycle, to produce energy for your body, and to run metabolism so you can actually run. So, it's like gasoline in your car or wood on a fire. It provides that energy, right? Fats or lipids. All right, so let's get over the fact that everyone thinks fats are bad for you. There are better fats and some that are healthier. Trans fats are not as healthy. But please realize your body does need lipids and fats for your biphospholipid layer of all your cell walls. You also need fat for neurological function. All right, and let's right now get rid of that misnomer that fat causes fat. All right, so generally, fat doesn't lead to fat. Actually, we'll talk about this towards the end of the semester. We'll talk a little bit about some of these specific diets. But remember, or please know now, that excess carbohydrates are converted to fat. We'll talk about the keto diet, South Beach or Atkinson or whatever, where we can start eliminating some of these carbohydrates, and your body will actually start breaking down the lipids or fats for energy. That's how it works. Proteins, generally they're for reparative stuff, enzymes, B cells, T cells, your immune system. On your book and some other places talk about proteins as being useful for energy, right? That's true. But your body's really going to want to use carbohydrates first. When they're used up, it's really going to want to start using lipids. It's going to save your proteins for regeneration or repair. That's really what they're there for: structure, repair, enzymes, hormones, things like that, structures in your cell wall for transport. Really just think of those as reparative. I like to think of them as little tiny Legos or whatever. We can build whatever we need with these proteins using amino acids and things like that. We're not going to get into ribosomes and how all that works. All right. Vitamins, these are usually cofactors, and cofactors are things that can transport minerals from minerals, so they start moving things around. Cofactors, B6, B12, I'm sure you heard of the B vitamins. We'll talk a little bit about that. Minerals are used for a lot of processes in the body, whether it's a Krebs cycle or some of these other cycles, and realize we need these usually in small amounts, but some of them are viable. Or there's trace minerals that we need, and there's major minerals that we need. I'm sure you're all familiar with calcium and some of these larger components of minerals. Water is definitely extremely important. Please realize your body is made out of 70% water, or more or less, more if you're an infant, less if you're an adult, and any loss of water can lead to dehydration that can change cell structure, lead to mental deficiency, and as little as 2% is mild dehydration. By the time you lose 8% of your water of your body and your blood and interstitial fluid, extracellular fluid, that can lead almost to death. Right? We'll talk a little bit about some organic nutrients. Right? So here's a breakdown. It's in your book, or if you're going to review the PowerPoint for review, it's in here. If you purchase the Connect Learn Smart system, they'll go through all this with flashcards and go over and over again. So you will be sure to learn all this. All right. So lipids, it says right here, source of energy, cellular development, physical growth and development, regulation of body processes, absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about water-soluble and fat-soluble would be your A, D, E, and K vitamins. All right. And these are fat-soluble. So remember, if they're fat-soluble, they're stored in your fat. So those we can store for a longer period of time. If it's a water-soluble vitamin, it's going to last in your body 2 to 3 days, because your kidneys are going to flush out any excess vitamins through your bloodstream out of the body. All right. Proteins, production of structural and functional components. And I said before, so on your enzymes, any of your muscle tissue or regenerating of your cells, your proteins are a huge source of that. Growth, maintenance, regulation of body processes through hormones and regulation, immune function with your antibodies and your B cells and T cells, fluid balance used for oncotic pressure, hydrostatic pressure. We're going to use albumin in the blood to kind of keep that fluid in your capillary beds. And it says here roughly source of energy, but once again, protein really is not used generally by the body for energy production. It's really there from structure. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, vitamins, regulation of body processes, maintenance of immune function, production, maintenance of tissues. If you guys have heard of vitamin C, I'm sure you have. Later we'll talk about how it diminishes scurvy, but it really is, just as an example, it's a component for collagen, right, which is part of your joints and preliminary structure for your bones. And without collagen, and start breaking down major tissues, especially blood vessels. And we talk about scurvy. People used to have their gums bleed and their teeth would fall out because of the lack of vitamin C and collagen production. Protection against agents that damage cellular components. So it's also antioxidants. A lot of these vitamins are antioxidant agents. All right, so minerals, regulation of body processes, including fluid balance, and that's with sodium, potassium. A lot of these things are just leave them outside my door and I'll autoclave it for you. Yeah. All right, no problem. Sorry, guys. So, regulation of body processes, including fluid balance, formation of certain chemical messengers, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into ATP and the Krebs cycle. Tissues, physical growth, maintenance and development. Not an important thing right now, but just kind of start thinking about these things and, what do we need them for? We've all read this on vitamin packages, or we've all maybe read it on food labels, but what do these mean? What do they do? Right? And water is huge. All right, maintenance of fluid balance, regulation of body temperature, elimination of waste. Then that can be either through urine, your digestive tract, transportation of substances. And please realize anything in your body that has to be transported to any cell in your body has to literally be in your capillary bed. So it has to be in your blood. So your blood plasma, once again, just start thinking 60, 70% water is in your blood. So anything in these nutrients or any of these substances that we need to transport around your body, whether it's glucose or potassium, white blood cells, or any of these things, they have to be dissolvable in water, right? And pretty much everything's dissolvable in water, except we all kind of hopefully know that lipids and water don't mix. So if we're going to transport lipids or any kind of fat soluble or fatty substance, we kind of have to surround that in some kind of a protein capsule, right? So think of it kind of like an M&M. We have to be able to put the lipids in the middle of the M&M and candy coat it or coat it with some kind of protein so it can dissolve in water, or at least can float in water, right? And these are going to precipitate in many chemical reactions. So dehydration, synthesis, or hydrolysis, whether we're building something down or breaking it up, all right? We use water. So we can either bring hydrogen and oxygen together and combine two things, or we can throw water at something and we can cleave it or cut it. All right. So metabolism are all chemical reactions. So that's either anabolic or catabolic, buildup or breakdown. Right. So any process in your body, whether we're digesting food or producing enzymes or chemicals or tissues or whatever from the food we consume, that's a metabolic reaction. Right. So we can energy generation if we break something down, like in the Krebs cycle. It's exergonic, so it's going to give off energy. Protein production, right? So if we're breaking down something, we're chewing it up, we're digesting it, and it's going through our hepatic portal vein into our liver, and our liver is recombining those substances to make whatever we want. Protein production, so via amino acids. So protein production can be production of anything: cells, hormones, tissues, antibodies. I'm just kind of thinking of some key things that you guys would have heard of. And then waste elimination. We also need to get rid of all that waste, because everything we consume, all right, and depending on what you consume, sometimes people can eliminate 60% of what they ate because it was either fiber or complete garbage that your body didn't use. So we just eliminate that. Hopefully, if your digestive tract is healthy, your microvilli is working, and you don't have a lot of Crohn's disease or inflammatory reactions, your digestive system has enough surface area, and you have the right pH and the right digestive enzymes to literally absorb the nutrients in your food. And if it's not nutrients, or if it's toxic or whatever, we hope that you eliminate it before your body absorbs that into your bloodstream, and then it flows to your body. And that's where people have a lot of systemic issues or fatigue, or they just, it starts damaging tissues and stuff. I'm not going to get real deep into it, but please, I'm going to drone on and on about trying to eat healthier. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I literally grew up on an organic farm in the country until I was 18 and went away to college. So my whole childhood and teenage years in high school was all geared on organic living. I kind of thought my parents were a little crazy, but now that I look back, in the late 70s, they were way ahead of their time. Right? So energy suppliers. So start thinking of, these are the things in your body that actually can supply energy. So fats, we're going to find out they have 9 grams of energy, or 9 calories per gram. All right, so those are the most calorie dense food. All right, so really you want fats for energy and long-term energy, because it takes a little while to break them down. So you're a little bit more satiated with the fat. And please also remember that these fats, good fats, not trans fats or altered fats, natural fats, are really used for right now. Let's just think they're used for your biphospholipid layer, which surrounds all your cells and decides what can come in and out of your cells. And myelin for a lot of your neurological processes for right now. Those, just kind of keep those two things in mind. So we need it for energy and some biological processes and structures. Carbohydrates, for right now, let's strictly think of those as energy. So that's your fuel. All right, they burn super quick, they burn hot. They're usually very, very instantaneously viable or available. All right, protein, it can supply energy. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but I want you to start thinking of proteins as structure. So they're really for structure and repair. All right, so those are really let's just think of those as building blocks. All right, alcohol is an energy supplier. All right, it kind of enters the Krebs cycle at a different portion than your other parts of things that you consume. And remember too that alcohol, most things enter your digestive system in your small intestine. All right, alcohol and aspirin are two substances that can be absorbed directly through your stomach. So you know, if you consume alcohol, it can be absorbed very, very quickly. Right? And then, you know, we'll talk a little bit about calories and kilocalories, and you know what each one of these things supplies. So on a test, if I gave you, like I said, if I gave you a substance that you consumed and I told you the amount of grams of each thing, you'd be able to tell me how many calories would be in that meal or that component. All right, macro always means large. So macronutrients are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So the things that we need to take large amounts of, relatively large amounts of. All right. And then you, at the end of the course, you can decide whether you want a high carbohydrate, low fat, or high protein, low carb. You know, whatever you decide is going to work best for you. You can experiment a little bit. You can decide how you want to mix these three that's healthiest and helps you feel the best. All right, so please realize no matter what you're eating, there's never one perfect diet for anyone. So it could be the Mediterranean diet, it could be keto diet, it could be, you know, My Plate by the US government, whatever has worked for you or whatever makes you feel the best. You know, that's something you have to decide. This is nutrition for a personal approach. So like I said, we'll talk a little bit about science, but I want you to start gearing up towards what does nutrition mean to you, or how would it work best for you? It's really the goal of this course for myself. All right. So micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals, you know, we kind of need these in small amounts, but they are essential. You can go a while without vitamins, but in discussion 3, we're going to talk about some of the disease processes that can happen with deficiency of vitamins and minerals. And there's more than you think. Right? And then water, number one thing that you can consume. And we'll talk towards the end about types of water. And please realize, you know, what's in your water. So if you're drinking tap water, please realize that that's probably very highly chlorinated. And please remember, people throw all kinds of things down the drain and flush. So that can be, you know, birth control pills, it can be any kind of medications, it can be pesticides. You know, what's in your water supply is something you should start thinking about. So, you know, bottled water, we'll have a little discussion on that, you know, about, I'll post a video on that anyway. Filtered water, even if it's a Brita filter, aqua filter, I have reverse osmosis in my kitchen because I'm not drinking tap water if I can help it, because chlorine can start damaging your capillary beds and start damaging your blood vessels in your body. I won't get too deep into that right now. Right. So food energy is a metric measurement. So just start thinking about, here's some lipids, alcohol, carbohydrates, and this is kind of pure protein, tuna fish, aside from the mercury. Carbohydrates, 4 kilocalories, kilograms 1,000. So really there's 4,000 calories, but it's all being converted to kilo for ease. So carbohydrates, there's 4 kilocalories per gram. Protein, 4. Fat, 9, and alcohol, 7. All right, so like I said, fat is your most calorie dense food. Alcohol is pretty calorie dense, right? But remember, these are empty calories. Right? Anything that ends in OL, right, is going to be some kind of a sugar alcohol. It's going to have energy. Sorry, this light keeps going off because I'm not moving. All right. So there's estimate the number of kilocalories in a serving of food that contains. So 30 grams, we're going to multiply that by 4. If anyone remembers fat, we're going to multiply that by 9. Protein, we're going to multiply that by 4. We're going to add those all up together. That will be the answer on your test. This is not active in here, but you can, in your book or in the PowerPoint, you can start dropping and dragging these, and it'll start giving you the amount of calories in that food. Right? So here's some of these essential nutrients. All right, so essential means we can't live without them. So some amino acids are some of these things we can produce. If we can't produce it, we have to consume it. So we'll start thinking about some of these. We'll get into these later on, especially with the discussion 3. So just water, these are some of the vitamins. And like I said, some of these A, D, E, and K are fat soluble. The rest of them are going to all be water soluble. Here's some minerals in here. I'm sure you have all heard of calcium, chloride, chromium, copper, iodine, iron. Some of these you've all heard of. And, just think of some of these like phosphorus, and some of these things are in a lot of the processed food, and you're consuming them in excess, not best idea. Right. And the following components of protein or amino acids are generally recognized as essential. So these are all essential: histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine. All right. And believe it or not, bacteria need these too, and they're prokaryotic. So these are really, really important amino acids. And start thinking about amino acids are these little tiny pieces, and amino acids we put together to make proteins. Proteins are very, very structural. Right? So start thinking of amino acids. I don't know if you're familiar with Legos, but those little tiny Legos, we put them all together and we can actually build something big. Well, your ribosomes in your cells are going to take all these amino acids and they're going to put them in a very specific order, like typing something out. And the order of the amino acids, it's done by codons and things like that. But we can actually go in and structurally make whatever our body needs. Now, whether it is a red blood cell or thyroxine or yeah.
So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing a lecture. So just,
we got some stuff just to autoclave.
Yeah, just leave it outside my door. I'll autoclave it. No problem. Yep. So some non-nutrients. All right, so plants, alcohol, phytochemicals, and antioxidants. So I'm not saying these are not essential or needed, but they're not nutrients. All right, so they might be free radicals, they might be detoxifiers, they might give you some, alcohol will give you some calories, but it's not really a nutrient. It's not going to nurture your body. It's going to give you energy, but it's not going to provide anything else structurally, right? Right, here are some things. So start thinking about these and, kind of start making this interesting, or start thinking about why would I change my diet? So here are some alpha carotene, beta carotene, you've probably all heard of that. So rich food sources, anything orange, red, yellow, vegetables, egg yolks. And then this is kind of what it does for you, right? Reduces certain types of cancer through antioxidant agents. Some of these can prevent blindness, beta carotene. It's talking about how carrots are good for night blindness, vitamin A. They're found in these foods. Right? Apples, tea, red wine, onions, olives, antioxidant. All right, they inhibit cancer growth, reduce heart risk. Remember, these are taking any kind of free radicals or any of these excess charges that are floating around your body. And think of these charges in your body, depending on whether you had chemistry or not. They're floating around, whether they're positive or negative, all right? They're kind of like people. We don't like to be by ourselves. So they always want to pair up with something else. So they're always going to find the positives and find a negative. So we kind of connect and have a zero charge. We don't want a charge out there that's slightly positive or slightly negative. We want it really to be neutral or at zero. All right, so red, blue, and purple fruits, antioxidants, red wine, soybeans. So just kind of look through these components, some of these things that you eat, and just think of, well, how can I combine those in my diet in a flavorful, colorful way, right? And, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes, like, I don't want my plate packed and overheating. That makes me sick to my stomach. But it also, if food is more colorful and more textured and more varied, it's much more palatable. You're much more likely to consume it. Right. So daily supplements with vitamins, minerals, herbs, plants, and amino acids. And like I said, your book is talking about some of these. I'm probably going to go a little deeper in my own personal thoughts about very holistic vitamins and minerals that, like I said, are coming from whole food. So the vitamins I consume are produced in the Midwest on an organic farm. So they literally take the crops and they dehydrate them in their whole food form. So when you consume them, your body, it's whole foods. Your body completely recognizes it as completely bioavailable to you. All right, so malnutrition. I've been teaching this course since 2010, so 10 years now, and I've always told students that the American population is overfed and undernourished. And it's getting worse. The majority of my patients are extremely healthy. I try to counsel them. But, a lot of times, when I first see them, they're overweight, they have chronic fatigue, and, you just got to start talking about diet, what are they eating? Don't come to my office and tell me how you are lethargic and have no energy, and meanwhile you stopped at the bakery and picked up a dozen donuts and had 3 on the way over. Right? So you're putting those preservatives and toxins in your body. You're spiking your glucose. You're going to crash. Half an hour after eating that, and I'll talk to you guys later about how consuming sugar diminishes your immune function within 20 minutes of consumption. That's proven. All right, but dietary inadequacy. Right, so people they're eating, they're full, but I don't want to be general, but a lot of times they're eating calorie-dense food, but it's nutrient lacking, let's put it that way. So low income risks. So at the end, I'll give you guys some films to watch on the blackboard, and they'll talk about some of these inner city people. Their only thing around them within miles is fast food restaurants. There's a moratorium, and they're saying, well, you can't put any more on there. But for them to find a market with fresh vitamins or some kind of other source of food is going to be hard to come by, and it's going to be extremely expensive. So for them, they can go through to a fast food business, and on the dollar menu they can get something to eat. But let's think about what are they consuming. All right, if it's soda or pop or whatever you want to call it, that's probably not the healthiest choice. That the bun or whatever they're consuming is bleached. Right, the French fries are likely genetically modified potatoes, and they're deep fried. So how much nutrients have you was in it to begin with, and how much did you fry out of it? Eating disorders. So whether that is eating poorly or eating and being bulimic, or eating and having Crohn's disease, or you're having some kind of inflammatory or antigen antibody reaction inside your GI tract, causing disturbances and causing diarrhea or IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or whatever. Substance abuse, that can be alcohol, it can be carbohydrates. So please realize too that in laboratory experiments, they gave rats the choice between cocaine and sugar in the water, and 97% of the time the rats would choose the sugar over the cocaine. So it's even more addictive than cocaine, sugar. Medical issues. So if they have Crohn's disease or irritable bowel or metabolic disorders, or they're unable to digest some amino acids, sources that can cause some real major issues. And, like I said, we talk about undernutrition and overnutrition. So some people are undernourished. That's because they don't eat or they don't want to eat. Some people are over eating. And, if you don't know what that is, just literally go to any shopping grocery store around. Probably not at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or whatever. There's people that are shopping there probably have a little bit healthier mindset. Right. Okay, so we'll talk about this. There are really no good or bad foods per se. Anything in moderation is fine. As an example, one of my weaknesses is cheesecake. So I know I'm not saying it's good for you, but probably not horrible. But in moderation, a piece now and then is not going to kill you, right? All right, and once again, this is a personal approach to nutrition. Food is the best source of nutrients and phytochemicals. So if you can get it through regular diet, that's fantastic. All right, you don't need supplementation. But I'm going to tell you guys again that the food supply right now, I don't want to be an alarmist, but the nutrients in the food right now is like a fourth of what it was when my great-great-grandfather had a farm in Oswego, New York. All right, so they grew pretty much everything. All right, but that food was much more nutrient dense. And if you've ever eaten organic, you're going to realize the vegetables or the fruit are usually a little bit smaller. But if you actually go in and taste that, it's going to have a lot more flavor to it, all right, and a lot more nutrients, regardless of what Monsanto and these other companies are telling you. And also realize that the soil right now, most of it is nutrient lacking because of people don't do crop rotation, winds, and over farming, not leaving fields empty every couple of years so that we can have nitrogen bonding in the roots, things like that. And once again, there's no one size fits all approach to nutrition. So this is going to be nutrition. This is a personal approach. What's going to work for you? All right. So if you don't really care and you just want to pass the course, that's fine. But while you're doing the course, at least start thinking about how can you change your diet to best benefit you. All right. And you or your partner may have different views and your diet approaches may be different. All right. So hopefully you guys can come together. Your family can come together on some things that you can agree on and hopefully make better choices for yourself, your partner, your family. And then, kind of the key to this would be if you're going into healthcare or whatever, at least you're able to explain to people why they want to do something. So if they don't want to do it, that's fine. People may be ignorant, all right, but you need to educate them. If they want to learn, they will. If they don't want to pay attention, they don't. But at least, we can present the information. They can decide for themselves if they care to what to think of. All right, foods and nutrients are not cure-alls. All right, but I have this strong opinion, my own personal opinion, that if you generally eat healthy and take care of your body, probably not going to have as many health issues as you could if you don't. All right, so bad or junk food still contain nutrients. All right, pies, donuts, ice cream, soft drinks, those are all things. Right? So, I'll have a donut once a year. I do like my ice cream, and on a really stressful day, I might have a milkshake. Right? Soft drinks, okay, water's always better. Pies, I'm not going to say they're not delicious. So, bad foods are toxic, right? Right. So bad foods are something that's toxic. So if it has intoxication of Staph aureus or a large bacterial load, or it's spoiled or things like that, they would be bad. It's better not to eat them. Contaminated food can have bacteria, viruses, microscopic animals. So they could be Chinese liver flukes. They could be tapeworms, salmonella, shigella, cholera, some of these other things. These lead to foodborne illnesses, and we'll really talk about those towards the end of our last discussion about the food supply. So, what do you, when you're eating, what are you thinking about, or what are some things that could be in the food supply, and whether it's pesticides that are sprayed on vegetables and get in the soil and they eventually get into drinking water, or a lot of these hormones they're injecting into food, the antibacterials are putting into cows to help the milk not spoil or help them to grow faster or get rid of diseases that are rampant in some of these food mills in the country. And we'll talk about that. So empty calories are high calories from unhealthy foods, added sugar or alcohol. So these are not going to, they're added to food to make them sweeter or to be more, I don't want to say addictive, but I'm going to. They're just giving you calories. You don't need, there's no nutritional value to it. They're just actually extra calories. So if you are very, very active and you need those calories, that's fine. But the majority of the population doesn't really need those calories. So these would be poorer choices for vitamins and minerals, or they might even be non-existent. So nutrient-dense foods is what we really want to start focusing on. So high ratio of vitamins and minerals to calories. Right? Leafy greens, fat-free milk, orange juice, lean meats, broccoli, whole grains, cereals would be much healthier choices for that. And we'll see a picture coming up. I think it's going to be like one donut or like a half a quart of strawberries. So either one's going to have the same amount of calories. So which one's going to be really more beneficial for you? All right, nutrient dense or energy dense. All right, so some foods are very nutrient dense, not very energy dense. But if we could find a mix of the two, that'd be the best case scenario. Right? So they're saying these kind of 8 ounces, very similar in caloric intake, all right, but this one has 8.26 grams of protein. It's got a lot more calcium, a lot more phosphorus, and a little bit of riboflavin, vitamin B6. All right, so you can choose. Either one's the same amount of fluid. Each one will hydrate you a little more. You can have your own personal opinion on whether you want to consume milk or not. All right, so just remember you're drinking the excretion of a cow's gland. All right, so in order to produce that, it's really those cells in that gland are actually breaking apart, and you're drinking the contents of those cells. Not to gross you out, but that's a choice you can make. Then we'll talk about breastfeeding and weaning, and just kind of realize that every other species on the planet stops consuming milk from their mother, their own species, usually after adolescence, their equivalent of adolescence. We're the only species that continues to drink milk throughout our lifetime, if that's a choice you want to make. All right. Not judging, I'm just saying that this is proven. All right, so there's, calorie density. So you can have a donut or strawberries. So this one's going to be pretty much flour that has no wheat germ on it, some fat and some sugar and deep fried. This is going to be something that, depending whether they're organic or not, it's going to have at least a little bit of fiber, some vitamin C, and some nutrients in it. So just kind of giving you a comparison. All right, so remember, there's no perfect food. No, eggs are pretty perfect, unless you're a complete vegan, which is a choice, and I commend it. I just don't know if I can do it. You need some variety, reasonable amounts, so moderation is always key, and then balance. So your caloric intake to your physical activity. So you can have as many donuts or cookies as you want, as long as you can physically burn it off. Right? So depending on your metabolic rate and your physical activity, you just want to really balance that. So a variety of whole and minimally processed foods are always the best choice. So we really would want more natural foods, plant foods, less processing. The more processed they are, the more nutrients are lost. And here's wheat germ, and here's white flour. So they're going to actually take away all that fiber and the germ, and all you're getting is the flour in the middle, which was the energy for the seed to grow. All right, so white flour. I talk to students usually if they're in class. I talk to them about having a white bread sandwich, and I just tell them it's really just bleach and glue, because flour and water in school when I was a kid, we used to make paste out of that. So and they bleach it, so you're literally just eating bleach and glue. So nutrient supplements: pills, powders, bars, wafers, and beverages. Is it digestible? Does it have any phytochemicals? All right, so you guys can make your own decision on what you want for nutrients, whether it's pills, powder, wafers, beverages, but kind of realize, we're going to be talking a little bit about scientific method and infomercials, and really, what are they really touting here? Is there any scientific proof behind it? And just imagine the amount of money that people are willing to spend for that magic cure of, this keto buster, or this will melt fat, or, here, just drink these protein shakes and you're going to lose weight and gain muscle mass, just as some of these examples. So just start thinking about some of these supplements, and are they really, really effective, or what are they really doing? Right? Nutritional adequacy, right? Suitable to lifestyle, budget likes and dislikes. Right? And people will tell me in this course continuously how eating healthier is so expensive, or eating organic is so expensive. But then when I talk to you guys about your meal prepping, how much, I don't know my demographics here, but how much are you spending on DoorDash or going out? Right now we're not really being allowed to go out, but how much are you spending in Buffalo here, like Tim Hortons people will spend, or Starbucks? I see students, spending $15-16 at Starbucks for a coffee and a sandwich, right? Or the Tim Hortons, they're spending this amount of money for this, or this amount of money for that, or they're going to a fast food restaurant and spending $12 or $13 for a meal, number one through whatever it might be. All right. And then if they could go shopping, I don't know, what your demographics are, but at Wegmans or Whole Foods or Piggly Wiggly or wherever, and getting food and prepping it and bringing that to work or with them, and eating for a lot less and a lot healthier. All right. But then again, people say, well, meal prepping, I got bored of it. It was too much work. I forgot my food. I didn't like the food. It was, all the same. So, whatever you guys want, whatever mindset you want, that's fine. If you want a growth mindset, that's great. If you want a closed mindset, that's completely up to you. All right. So special diets, changes in lifestyle. All right. So the woman here is obviously pregnant, so she needs to change her lifestyle a little bit. She's eating for two, and she's going to literally want to cut out any kind of pesticides or drugs or chemicals in her body that we wouldn't want to be absorbed in the fetal embryo. So chronic illnesses can be anything from rheumatoid arthritis to COPD or some kind of digestive illness. We have to figure out, or a lot of the digestive issues right now. We'll talk about those towards the end. I don't want to get really opinionated, but I want to start thinking about what caused them, and the people that have these things, be really careful about what they eat. All right? Special situations, if they're on some kind of chemotherapeutic agents, there's certain things they can't take, and and then lifestyle factors. Are they just not willing to cook, or are they 85 and it's not safe for them to cook, or are they vegetarians, or do they have a physical disability where they can't cook? So there are a lot of lifestyle factors. Or is it somebody who is a raging alcoholic, and all they want to do is consume alcohol or beer? Then they're not going to be hungry. They're not going to want to eat. It causes a whole bunch of malnutrition issues. And functional foods, boosting nutrient intake, managing specific health issues, and then probiotics are really things that you consume that will help the microorganisms in your digestive tract grow. So please realize there are microbes in your intestine. So not all bacteria is bad. You want some of that. It's going to help start breaking down your food. Some of them produce vitamin K in your large intestine for blood clotting. Some of those break down lactose. They break down a lot of these proteins. They break down a lot of these fibers. So you really, really do want microbes in your digestive tract, and these probiotics can help support those microbes from growing. Because if we didn't have any microbes in our body from antimicrobials or whatever, then we get into the whole Clostridium difficile C. diff issue, which is not good either, right? And there's some boost bars or smart omega plus. So these are really for people if they have a digestive issue, or a lot of times with the elderly, they might have swallowing or chewing issues, or after a stroke, or maybe they just don't really get that hungry. If we can at least give them something that will give them some liquid nutrition that's energy dense, or this, it happens to be, they're touting this as a healthier butter because it has plant sterols and fish oil in it. So they're going to give it, it's something they'd put on their toast or whatever, but we're going to give it a little bit of nutritional boost for that. Yep. Okay, guys, hopefully it's recorded, and I will post this for you and show.